Expectations. A word defined as a strong belief that something will happen or will be the case in the future. When it comes to hockey, we as fans and media create this image for how well or how poorly a team will perform based on their overall talent, analytics, and of course, our expectations. One team that was widely considered a powerhouse for the 2024-25 season was the New York Rangers. However, after their downfall from the top, I think it's safe to say that they have failed to meet those lofty expectations we had set for them to begin the year. Now, a lot has happened this year with the Rangers, but the biggest criticism for this team hasn't been about their talent or lack thereof. In fact, the real criticism for them has come from their lack of effort and grit. And I think today, with them sitting outside of a playoff spot, it's about time we talk about the Rangers, their current direction, if this season is salvageable, and whether or not this team has enough to make the postseason or even go on a run if they somehow squeak in. The New York Rangers have to be the most shocking team of the year, and the reason I bring up expectations when it comes to this team is because, like most, I found the New York Rangers to be one of the top teams in the league before we got into the 2024-25 season. Now, whether you believed in this New York roster or felt like they were frauds, I don't think a single person out there expected them to not make the playoffs, and whether that means in a wildcard position or within the top three of their division, this has just been probably the worst case scenario for a team that has an aging core and feels like they're in their window to win a championship. So today, let's recap the season for the New York Rangers, their play as of late, and why missing the playoffs could be a terrible thing for this organization moving forward. Let's start by quickly recapping what has happened to this team and some of the big changes that have been made. To start the season, the New York Rangers were a pretty mediocre team, but despite having a .500 record, it felt like fans were noticing an energy shift within their team's lineup. This all likely stemmed from some off-season rumors pertaining to their captain, Jacob Trouba, who is rumored to be on the trade block despite having a no-trade clause. The tension from this clearly rubbed off on the roster, and not in a good way, because before you know it, Chris Drury, the Rangers GM, made a claim that he would be willing to trade any of their tenured players, including Trouba and Kreider. Eventually, the Rangers were able to find a trading partner to unload the Trouba contract, sending him to the Anaheim Ducks. The hope from this was to inspire the team by changing their leadership, because clearly they felt that things had gone toxic with Jacob Trouba following the trade rumors. But unfortunately for the team, this had an adverse effect, dividing them even further. Following the Trouba trade was the Kaapo Kakko saga. Kakko, the Rangers' 2019 second overall pick, was traded to the Seattle Kraken after a few disappointing seasons with the hockey club. The Rangers have always had a poor reputation when it comes to developing their prospects. Kakko, like some of their other young players, was never really given the opportunity to thrive under their system. And because the Rangers were in a unique position where they had players who were clearly above the level of their younger players, they usually stuck Kakko, guys like Lafreniere and Hito, all on their third and fourth line until eventually they felt like they could get a few minutes to prove themselves. Unfortunately for Kakko, he was healthy scratched way too many times, and following the trade, it seems like he's found his game again, playing significant minutes with the Kraken and being one of their better players. Now, despite all of the trades, I think the Rangers were really hoping that this would unite the lineup, but unfortunately, all it would do is continue with their mediocrity. After weeks of .500 hockey, eventually management decided that with an unexpected player becoming available that they were going to invest even more within this roster. The Rangers would make a trade with the Vancouver Canucks, acquiring JT Miller in exchange for Filip Chytil, another one of their young players. Now, JT Miller was initially supposed to be a water bug for this lineup. His edgy personality and leadership that he brought over from Vancouver was supposed to be the perfect add for this Rangers lineup. Now, this did provide an initial boost once he started with the team, but like the previous first half of the season, eventually the Rangers would fall back into their old habits, being unable to galvanize around what was supposed to be a bigger picture. Post Four Nations faceoff break and post-trade deadline, the Rangers would move on from other players including Ryan Lindgren, Jimmy Vesey, and Riley Smith, really looking to finalize their team and get back into the playoff picture in one last-ditch effort to salvage their season. Now, of course, there is more insights that go into each one of these individual stories, but for today's purposes and for this video, I think that this summary does a good enough job of explaining how the Rangers got to this position. Of course, if you guys want a little bit more information, I've been making more videos about the Rangers all year than any other team, with this one being the latest, so be sure to check those out after this one. But for today, the Rangers are a couple of weeks post-trade deadline and still outside of a wildcard spot. They've had a few good stretches where it seems like they're going to get back into things, but eventually they just fall back into old patterns. And I think something that'll help you guys better understand this aspect of the Rangers is to compare their stats from last season to this year, and you guys can clearly see the drop-off once we go through all of these numbers. Let's start with their offensive numbers. The Rangers finished 7th last year in goals for per game, and this year have dropped all the way to 14th. In terms of power play numbers, which is typically the Rangers' strong suit, they've dropped off significantly, ranking 3rd in the league last season to now being 25th. In terms of defensive and goaltending metrics, they went from having the 3rd best penalty kill last season to now being 6th. They also dropped in their goals against average, going from 7th to 18th. And in terms of team save percentage, they went from 6th last year all the way to 14th this year. In fact, the one stat that no one expected to see improvements on, because the Rangers typically rely on their power play percentage so much, was their 5v5 total goals, which last year ranked 18th in the league and has gone up to 11th this year. So to summarize, the Rangers have essentially fallen off in every single stat throughout their lineup, and some of their players have also taken a pretty sizable step back, which was expected, but not entirely to this extent. For instance, Alexis Lafreniere, who mind you received a sizable contract this offseason, has fallen off quite a bit, specifically in the goals category, going from 29 in 82 games last year to 15 in 71 games this year. Mika Zibanejad is another guy who has received a fair share of criticism from the fan base this year. Typically over the last 3 seasons, he's been a point per game player, but this year has seen a drop off in production, going from 72 points to 49 points. And even a guy like JT Miller is having a down year, although I will add he did miss some time while in Vancouver due to personal reasons, and also with all of the drama that happened over there, it just felt like something needed to change for him. So right now he might not be performing to his usual standard, but I actually expect him to start playing well once he gets more situated. Adam Fox has missed time due to injury, and after his Four Nations appearance, it felt like he took a pretty big step back from the Norris caliber player he was in the past. Keandre Miller, just like Mika Zibanejad, has felt like public enemy number 1 to this fan base. It just doesn't look like his typical self. And in fact, the only 2 guys who I feel have done their best with the situation are Artemi Panarin and Igor Shesterkin. And sure, both of their numbers might be down, but if you're actually using the eye test and watching Rangers games, then you could see that these 2 are still playing at a high level, but it just doesn't seem like the rest of the team is following in their footsteps. At the time of this recording, the Rangers are 1 point back from the Montreal Canadiens for the final wildcard spot in the East, and given how things have been going as of late, with the team being 3-5-2, I'm not quite sure if they're going to be able to get things done this year. But if they somehow do squeak into the playoffs, they also wouldn't be a team that I would bet against, with them facing off against the Washington Capitals in the first round, where if they can somehow just realize they've been underperforming and start putting a little bit more effort in and have a hot Shesterkin, they could very easily go deep in the playoffs given the talent on this roster. One last thing I want to talk about today is their longtime commentator Sam Rosen is officially retiring after this season, so I think it would be pretty awesome for this team to squeak in and give him one more opportunity to call games in the postseason for a team that he's been working for over 40 years. So congratulations to him on his retirement and best of luck. One of the best voices in hockey. I would love to hear your guys' favorite call from him in the comments below, as well as just your other opinions on this video and the current state of the New York Rangers. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching these videos. If you like this one, make sure you hit that button now and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next episode.